back from England, is that correct?
Yeah.
And what were you doing over there?
I was living in London, and I was like a teaching aide with an autistic unit, like primary school aged.
Yep.
And I did that originally in Melbourne, part time while I was still studying, and that's how I could go over there and work with an agency and do supply work.
Yeah.
Which was cool. It was totally cool. I was somewhat miserable though. You know, I was just like pretty homesick.
Yeah.
Job was incredibly rewarding, but it was like full on.
It's a pretty intense job. I know a family friend that does exactly the same, and she does get the reward, but it's really draining.
Yeah, and it was like a lot of time it was like really physical. Like you'd be like on guard.
Right.
But when I did it in Melbourne originally, it was like totally fun.
Yeah.
Like I was working with kids who were like high functioning, you know, and so they were just a bit like quirky. They were just even cooler than, you know, the regular kids.
Yeah.
I was like, where's my group of misfits? And I loved it. And I actually see some of them when I go home now to my old town and see them around. And
that's awesome.
At the end of my my week in Sydney, my last week working here, and I'd said farewell and I'd gone home for Christmas, I'd go straight from the airport to my old high school to give a speech. They have a tradition of bringing back the ducks from 10 years previous.
Were you ducks?
Yeah, I know. Do you know? I think the keyword is 10 years previous. I just realised you finished in 2013. I'm like, I'm 10 years older than you.
It's all right. My co-host on the radio is 10 years older than me.
I know, but
which is like a bit of a culture jump.
You would have almost been the same age as the kids I taught. They were in grade 6 in 2008. You would have been year 7.
Year 7 just then. So, but basically the same age. It's just that I can drink and they can't.
Yeah, wow. It's going to be weird when I see those kids at the pub.
Oh, man.
But yeah, I had to go back to the high school and give a speech. And it was awful because I was at that point where I had nothing to sort of say. I started with, you know, I'm nearly 30, don't have a partner, don't have kids, a house, car, money, don't have a job. I'm like,
so how did you get around it? How did you...
Well, I was just honest. I just said that. Yeah. And the principal was squirming. The principal was just like, oh, I just said all these great things about you in the intro. And I'm like, yeah, now I'm telling the truth. Which, you know, I think kids, as when we talk about like fake passion, people see through you if you're lying. Mm-hmm. People just want you to be yourself and be genuine.
Yeah.
So I was just in front of an audience of children where I'm now having this like meltdown at the end of a very emotional week going, what am I doing with my life? And venting in front of them.
Yeah.
Which was cool because that process kind of made me assess where I'm going and how do I articulate that. And I guess with some of those students is the way I phrase it is like I'm in the same position as the school leavers, albeit 10 years older.
As in a crossroads.
A crossroads, totally. And it's like, what am I going to do next? And having originally been at a crossroads 10 years when I'd left high school, what have I learnt since then to now help me navigate through this crossroads a second time a little bit better?
Right.
You know, and I think what I tried to tell them and what I think is the best advice is not to be burdened by expectations. Because I think since leaving school, I've always, you know, you got the marks, you've got to go do this and you've done this. It's just like, there's a certain sort of script that you have to follow.
Yeah.
And if you venture too far off that, people start asking questions and you're off the rails and, you know, I'm like, oh, you've quit your job. You're crazy. What's going on? You're now unemployed. And people say, no.
Yeah.
And for the first time ever, I'm just saying, yes, I'm doing what I want to do.
I got my ATAR a couple of weeks ago, and I went to a selective school, an academically selective school. So there's high expectations and high marks there, and everyone works pretty hard. I got a 58.4, which is one of the lowest in the school. Mm-hmm. And that, you know, that definitely raised a lot of questions about what the hell I was doing there, why I was bothering, all that sort of stuff. Because, you know, this job that I have at the moment and all my work on a website is obviously taking up, you know, most of my time, and school becomes a second seat. But whether that's a good thing to do, because it's actually what I want to do, that's where my passion lays, and I know that early. And
that's the hardest thing, is that a lot of people, including myself, don't know what they want to do. And if you can answer that question early, like, fuck what that score is. Yeah. Because it's not relevant to what you're doing and where you're going. And look what you're already doing now. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I'm incredibly lucky to have what's going on at this age. And I see probably 95% of the people I know don't know what they want to do. And they're at the point right now where they've got their ATAR back, they're making their decisions with universities, the offers are coming through, that sort of stuff. How do you suggest they make their decisions? Because you obviously did you do law, is that correct? And are you a lawyer now?
I'm not recognised in law as a lawyer. I've got my degree. I think, you know, you've got to do like a 12 months either clerkship or practical training element.
Right.
Which, so actually I could do the course for probably about 2 or 3 months and then be recognised as a lawyer.
Do you want to?
No, but I'm still thinking about doing it just so I can say I am and then go sit back on the couch.
Illy's a lawyer.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
I know, because when I interviewed him, he was like finishing up his law degree, and I was just totally asking all these law questions, and the producer
mental.
was like, "That's not interesting to anyone but you guys." Like the audience at home is not like, "Wow, tell me more about that case," you know. Whereas I was just like, "Oh my god, yeah." I totally respect that. But yeah, I don't think I want to. I don't want to be a lawyer. I never, and that's what I mean, burdened by expectations. I did that because I had great marks.
Yeah.
You get good marks, you go to law school, you do, a doctor. It's not.
You do a high marks degree.
Because you're silly if you don't do it. You know, you're told you're silly. And I knew straight away I didn't want to do it. And I was like, I'm going to leave. Mum and Dad were pretty much like, well, you should stick it out. And it's only a couple of years, then you'll have that under your belt. And I hated them for that advice. But now that I have the degree, I'm glad, you know, because I do have it there. And I do believe in that whole, you know, the domino effect and the sliding doors. Had I not gone to that uni and stuck it out, I would not have then tried to escape the law career by going to London, and which I would not have then got the V. You know, you are where you are because of how you got there.
Yeah.
So you can't really, you know, bemoan the past too much. But the whole law thing, I needed to sort of put that to bed. I'm actually enrolled in uni for 2014. I don't think I said that. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to go.
And what are you going to be doing?
A Master of Arts and Cultural Management.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to do my Masters.
Masters.
But I don't know if I can be bothered doing it this year, or maybe just have my 12 months of the silly season and then maybe do it next year.
Did you have a gap year when you finished high school?
No.
So you haven't had your gap year yet. You need one.
Yeah, I know. That's what I figure. I guess I kind of had one when I finished uni, and that's when I went to London and travelled a bit. But I was still working. I mean, you can work in a gap year. Maybe I travel.
You've got so many open decisions to make now.
And that's what's scary. It's because it's like, there's so much. It's like, what am I going to do?
I feel as if right now you are very relevant to any high school, like kids that have just finished high school that are watching this.
So
I
what
feel
are
like
we
you're going
doing,
through the same
kids?
emotions.
What are we doing?
Because you've got uni to choose, you've got traveling to choose, you can defer if you want to. Like, there's so many options for you right now.
Yeah, and it's like, do you want to work and save money? And do you want to... Because I've always been awful with money. Like, I don't spend a lot on things. Like, I don't own really any things.
You just don't care where it goes. Like,
you
don't spend and it doesn't really...
Yeah, I'm like, oh, this round's on me. Or let's get a cab. Or, like, forget taking the train. And... You know, and I was living by myself and paying this ridiculous rent. I'm like, oh, it's cool, just put that on credit, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And then I have a credit card debt and no job. It's, like, ridiculous. I often think, like, a lot of my friends from high school who I don't really see anymore, with no spite or anything, just, like, you know, hard feelings, I just don't see them.
You run out of time for people that, you know, don't really enrich your life that much.
Yeah, and it's sort of like you were friends based solely on proximity. The fact you all grew up together, you were thrown in a classroom, hey, we're friends now, this is what the rules are.
Yeah.
And so... I keep in touch with some of them and I see them all on Facebook, and most of them are married and have the house and kids and have this stability and
Australian dream.
The Australian dream, which I would like that one day. But it's funny because in high school, when you sort of assign roles as a person, you know, I was always a high achiever, you know, and proud of it. I was always like this aggressively studious sort of, you know, I've relaxed a little bit since then. And it's just weird to think that 10 years on, I'm the person with debt and no job living with mum and dad. And, you know, that will probably surprise a lot of people I went to school with.
Any guys or girls that you're still in touch with that were doing quite poorly in high school and are now doing really well with their lives?
Oh, yeah, I guess so. There were people there at high school that were a bit, you know, they were chumps.
Yeah.
How do we say it? You know, and I guess on paper, you know, you can never really know if someone's happy. But on paper... they have all those things that they think makes them happy. A lot of them, I don't know in terms of like career, you know, and how high, you know, any real high flyers. I think most of the high flyers, they were pegged as high flyers.
Yep.
I don't think there's anyone that's been too surprising. Not to say that, you know, the role you're given in high school sort of
sticks with you for life.
But for a lot of people, it does. Like, even with the grade 6 kids I used to work with, I see some of them now as 17-year-olds. And I see them down the street and I'm like, oh, what are you up to? You know, and they're getting ready to finish school and all this sort of stuff. And I'm not surprised by any of the results. You can pick straight away.
Basically, from as soon as you start talking, there's traits that stick around for the rest of your life, basically. Yeah. Like, my pop is now 87. And my nan has a whole bunch of videos of when he was really, really young, like when video cameras were first fucking invented. Like, I don't know, 1950 or something. Anyway, it's probably about 22 or 23. And there are so many things you can see in him then, because he's got dementia and stuff now. He can hardly even talk. But there's still so many things you can see in him today that he was exactly the same at 21, 22. And it's really interesting how whilst your face can change and your skin can change and your clothing sense can change and your way of thinking even can change, there's still certain traits that stick with you for the rest of your life.
It's really funny. It's funny that some traits do change though.
Yeah.
How, like, compared to the person I was in high school, like different person. Different.
Yep.
You know, like the core is the same, but I wouldn't be recognizable to a lot of the people I went to high school.
Yeah.
I remember I had this like what we call the off the rails year.
Yeah.
I was about 21, and I was living in Melbourne, and I'd found this new group of friends who I'd kind of known for a while, but had never really been friends with, and just sort of see about town. And they were like, they were dudes, you know, like, and I never had like mates that were like dudes.
Yeah.
And they were rock and rollers. They were rock pigs. They had long hair. They drank way too much. Drugs now played a part in my life. This whole year I'd be going to uni with club stamps all up my arm because I've been out all night and doing, you know, this kind of the debauched year, which was, I think, for a lot of people a rite of passage. Not always.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that I used to be friends with in high school, there was like, I heard from so-and-so that you did this and you did that. And there was talk that, you know, I've changed and I'm losing my way and all this sort of thing. And my marks dipped for that 1 year. And I'm still really good friends with these dudes, but now I can at least draw a line and say, that's you and this is me. And I can be me in your group and not have to try to be you. But that whole thing where I'm now a different person because I had that experience. And we do, even my friends here in Sydney, we carry on a lot. We misbehave a lot. We do things we shouldn't do, which I think as the golden boy in school would surprise a lot of people.
Yeah. But as you continue to do that, your morals sort of stay the same, don't they? You have that idea of right and wrong maintained throughout those years, don't you?
That's almost like part of the thought process with something like drugs, for instance. It's like morally wrong and morally right is a different question to legal and illegal. Yeah. And then that sort of conversation that you have sometimes to justify your behavior. But they're questions that you don't ask sometimes when you're a kid. Yeah. Illegal means wrong, legal means right, and that's the line I draw. And then when you're a bit older and perhaps worldlier, you can start saying, well, I don't have to be told what to do always by a bunch of dudes in suits. Yeah. This is what's right for me. This is who I am.
It's not going to tell me what to do.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think just like asking more questions. That's like a sign of like an adult, maybe. Yeah. Actually, no, kids ask a lot of questions.
Apparently, the average 4-year-old asks 400 questions a day.
There you go. Maybe we should all be like 4-year-olds. No, seriously, like people don't ask enough questions. Yeah. People just accept this is what you're doing. It's like, okay.
There's a quote somewhere that says question everything. And every time I see that, I vibe that.
Yeah. And you're like, who wrote that? There's a question. Question everything.
Kicking it all off. Why is that there? Who paid for that to be there?
Yeah. I used to annoy the shit out of my boss, just constantly. It'd be like, this is the schedule, this is what you're doing. It's like, why? And you'd pull it to bits. And she's like, can you just accept it for what it is? I'm like, I could, but that would make your job way too easy. Yes. You know?
I think it's important to be constantly asking questions, and that helps you to sort of make the world a bit different.
To nitpick.
Yeah.